D&D number 6, The Worth of Souls, in Jesus' name. Chapter 7. At least she didn't scream this time. She did wake up, panicked, sweating, and shaking with thoughts of seeking out Shelley. Two things stopped her: a dark, unfamiliar house, and the fear of disturbing the lovebirds. She thought for just a moment that she'd heard voices or maybe a door shutting, but she knew she was safe. She'd been assured by Master Kino that the house was not penetrable. She thought of the long talk she'd had with Eric Kino in his study earlier that evening. She was welcomed into his study, unlike her stepfather, who never allowed her in his domain, not even once during her life. Eric spoke with her as if what she had to say was utterly important to him. He nodded and made comments as she told the story of her abduction, letting her know that he completely understood what she'd been through, understood her fears, and her coming to terms with her own mortality. He'd asked her about her relationship with her stepfather, about her mother, about her sister. He'd understood her feelings of betrayal by both her mother and her biological father, who'd never come back for her. He'd commended her on her writing career, on her strength, on her calm thinking under pressure when she'd been in captivity. He had a presence about him, a powerful presence. He was a wonderful man, and Mickey understood completely why his family was so full of love and kindness and respect for each other. Rising, she made her way into the bathroom and splashed water on her face, glancing down at the cut on her hand. It was healing well, thanks to Jeff. She sighed. Where is he? She wondered. Is he safe? Would the Kinos keep her informed? Drying her hands and face, she wandered out onto the balcony. The warm ocean breeze blew her hair back from her face, calming her as she walked to the edge and leaned over the railing. The ocean was powerful and beautiful, and she would normally be captivated by the moonlight on the water, but all she could think about was Jeff. So strong, so kind. The way he took control of the situation when he found her in the woods, the way he lifted her and carried her to safety, she couldn't get him out of her head. Her heart skipped a beat as she thought of how he'd kissed her in the car. She missed him. How could she be so needy? New scene. He slipped into her room. The bed was empty, and he knew a moment of irrational fear. But he turned his head toward the open balcony door, and she was there, standing in a sheer pink nightgown, leaning over the railing in the moonlight. He marveled at her beauty. Moving, gasping, she whirled, her hands flying to her face in startled surprise. Jeff? He smiled. Jeff! She cried, running at him. He caught her and scooped her up. She wrapped her legs around his waist as he crushed her to him and fiercely kissed her mouth. When he finally pulled back, she hugged him to her, burying her face against his neck. I can't believe you're here, she cried. Why not? I told you I'd come back to you. I thought it would be days or even weeks before I saw you again, and now you're here. You're really here. She pulled back to look at him and took his face in her hands, her brow furrowed. Jeff, what happened to your face? I had a little confrontation with the boys. I'm okay. What boys? The ones you don't want to hear about? The guy driving the van? Him and a few others. He set her on her feet, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Why not? Because I've been having a hard time trying to put you out of my mind while I work, and now I'm here with you in my arms, and I don't want to talk about the bad guys. She smiled up at him. Oh, I'm sorry I've been distracting you, she lied. Of course, the news didn't bother her a bit, because she was having a hard time herself, keeping her thoughts from him. He pulled her close. Mickey. He stopped, sighing deeply. What? She asked. What's wrong? He shook his head. It's just that I want to make love to you, Mick. I can't get you out of my head. I know I shouldn't do it, and still, you are all I can think about. She kissed his cheek. Then just do it, Jeff. I want you. I know you do, and I want you, but you're not yourself. But you've told me so yourself. You said you don't usually cry at the drop of a hat. You don't usually cling to anyone. You were quite self-sufficient before you were abducted. You didn't need anyone. You've said all those things. So knowing that you've been traumatized, that you're vulnerable, I should just walk away. I should leave your room right now. But I can't seem to make myself do it. I'm drawn to you. I'm a weak man, Mickey. She smiled. Oh, thank goodness. He scooped her up and carried her inside to the bed and stretched out next to her. Jeff, I missed you so much. While you were gone, I felt so empty. I missed you too, Mick, he murmured as he nibbled at her lips. All I could think about was getting back to you and spending time with you and sleep with you, wrapped in my arms, knowing you're safe and protected. Mickey moaned as he kissed her deeply. Jeff understood her moan. The taste of her, the feel of her, was like salve to a wound. He felt ultra-sensitized to every nuance of her, the scent of her hair, the pulse beating at her throat, her soft sighs. There was so much pleasure just in her kiss alone. I can't stop kissing you, he murmured. Then don't, she whispered. She sighed in contentment as he continued. Each kiss soothed the place in her soul. Each kiss subdued the want, the deep pulsing need she had to be close to him, to feel his masculine power, and trust that power to take complete control of her. She was lost in his kisses, lost and found. Mick, you are beautiful. He rose and toed off his shoes, moved closer to her, and dropped his forehead to hers. Sweet Mickey, it feels so good to be with you like this. It feels so right. Nothing should feel this good. Nothing has ever felt this right in my life. Jeff lifted his head and kissed her long and slow and moved to her side. Mickey curled up close, pressing her face against his throat and breathing him in. He wrapped his arms securely around her, and they lay silently for some time. It was Mickey who finally spoke. I know there are a lot of things wrong in my life right now, Jeff, but somehow, with you by my side, I can't seem to feel anything except euphoric. Jeff chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. Mickey giggled. Jeff rose slightly to look at her face. That was beautiful. What? That sound? I think it was you, laughing. I think it was. Imagine that. There were times over this past week I thought I'd never laugh again, and here I am, feeling almost happy, feeling pleasure, feeling alive. Lord, it's like I'm falling in love with you. She gasped at her own words, placed her hand over her mouth. Oh, Jeff, I didn't mean that. Please don't pay any attention to me. It's just part of the trauma thing you were telling me about. Some sort of transference of something or another. I'm sorry. Please don't let my inane rattling push you away. It's just that... He placed his hand over her mouth. Shh, baby. I'm not going anywhere. It's okay. It's okay if you didn't mean those words, and it's okay if you did mean them. The crazy thing is, I'm feeling the same way. Maybe it is just the trauma thing for both of us, or maybe it's the real thing, or whatever. Let's just be honest with how we're feeling. We'll take it slow. We won't rush, just in case this is, what'd you call it, transference of something? He gave a small laugh. Until we figure it out, let's just be happy with what we have. And I'm telling you right now, I love being with you, and I miss you when you're not around. Me too, Jeff. New scene. Mickey woke and stretched her pleasantly fatigued muscles. Smiling, her mind quickly did a rewind of the night's events. Jeff beside her, holding her, soothing her. His kisses were delicious, to say the least. She turned her head to watch him sleep. However, he wasn't there. Sitting up quickly, she peered around the room and breathed a sigh of relief when she spotted him on the balcony. It was only dawn, and he couldn't have slept but a few hours altogether, so how could he be up so early? Wrapping the sheet around her, she went outside to join him. He turned as she neared him. The smile on his face melted her. Good morning, he said softly. Hi. What are you doing up? I'm just used to getting up early, I guess. He crooked a finger at her. Come here. She edged forward into his arms and raised her mouth for the kiss. He smiled down into her face. You want to see something really cool? She smiled. Sure. He pulled her in front of him and pointed down just past the pool area to the first strip of white sand. 6 amazing people moved in sync to the rhythm of the waves, ebbing and flowing. It was beautiful. They're doing that Tai Chi stuff, huh? Mickey whispered. Tai Chi Chuan. Then after that, they'll go into the lesson for the day. Tai Chi used to be an actual fighting style handed down from the Chen family in China, but it evolved into like a form of gentle exercise. Grandmaster Kino uses it to warm up. Do you do all that stuff? Sort of. I mean, my boss, Jason, learned from Eric, and Jason teaches his agents, or he teaches the teachers who teach his agents. We agents tend to center in a more lethal way. Don't get me wrong, these people, he said, pointing at the family below, are lethal, or I guess I should say can be lethal. I go against Grandmaster Kino, I'm dead. I just haven't developed all the other sides, all the being one with the universe and one with God stuff. I do work a little on that, like I said. Jason's followers, Jason follows Zendo Ru and encourages his agents to become totally whole. Totally whole. I like the way that sounds, she said. She turned to watch the family. They were now running through kicking drills. Mickey was completely astounded when Shelley went through a series of kicks against a kicking pad held by her son Mark, while at the same time Jeffy did the same against a guy Mickey presumed to be Joey, the agent she hadn't met. Eric was on his knees before little 6-year-old Joey, instructing and correcting him. They are amazing, Mickey said softly. Jeff nodded. Yeah, they are. Mickey glanced up at him. You really like these people. You said they're like family to you. They are, but it's not like I'm special. I mean, they treat everyone like that, like family. I have great respect for them. All of them are at least like 4th, 5th, 6th degree black belts in more than one style of martial arts, except for little Joey, but he'll catch up, I have no doubt. And you should see Ricky. He is the stuff. He's a 7th Dan in Taekwondo. I don't know what Dan Eric is. He's a grandmaster. And you have to be 9th Dan to be a grandmaster, but he may be higher. I'm not sure if it goes up from there. I think it does. And that's just Taekwondo. They do karate, hapkido, judo, ninjutsu, and others. They are deep into the Chinese Shaolin kung fu art, but there are no belts determining rank in that one. Well, then how do you know they're deep into it? Mickey asked in jest. Jeff smiled down at her. Well, they take, or sojourns, they call it, to stay with and train with Shaolin monks. The Shaolin don't let just anyone into their midst, but they do the Kinos. Master Kino will tell you it has helped him greatly to achieve his oneness because that is a big part of the Shaolin teaching. Body, mind, and spirit are as one. Jeff shrugged. It may seem boring to some, but it's all pretty interesting to me since I've trained so much. It would be cool to progress so far. Suddenly, Laura's disdain for his career choice jumped into his brain, and he hoped he wasn't boring Mickey, but the thoughts fled at her next statement. Well, maybe you could teach me some stuff. Maybe it would help me to feel a little bit empowered. He smiled, his heart turning over with contentment. That is a great idea, Mick. That's why Shelley became a martial artist. What do you mean? A long time ago, back when Mark and Joey were little, Shelley was raped. It sent her into a tailspin until she took it upon herself to take Taekwondo. That's how she met Eric. How do you know all this? Oh, I accompanied her and Bree when Shelley spoke at a women's conference several years ago. That woman has been through hell and back. A lot like you. He touched her cheek. Anyway, at the time, I was Bree's bodyguard. Oh, yes, I heard all about that, Mickey said, her face shining with amusement. Jeff shook his head and rolled his eyes. Of course you did. They take every opportunity to tell the story. He smiled and turned to Mickey and pulled her close. Did the story help to cheer you up? Immensely. Well, then it was worth it. He motioned over his shoulder to the family below. They invited me to join them this morning, but I knew I'd be busy, so I turned them down. Really? Busy doing what? She asked, smiling provocatively. He ran a finger across her collarbone, which was the only bit of skin that wasn't wrapped up in the sheet. You know. Bending down, he kissed her softly. When he raised his head, he frowned, which frightened Mickey. What? she asked. What? You're frowning. What's wrong? Grimacing, he touched her nose. I admit, it's something terrible. I want to go back to bed and hold you and kiss you. I want to go back to bed and hold you and kiss you. But I have several things I have to take care of today, and Jason will be here soon for breakfast. I don't know if there's time. I need to shower and dress and write up a report before he gets here. Mickey forced her calm, responsible side to emerge. You go take care of business. I'll be okay. New scene. He came out of the bathroom already dressed. She watched him tuck in his shirt, put on a tie, buckle his belt. Where did you get the clothes? She asked. I stopped by my apartment last night. Oh, she sighed. The only clothes she had were the shorts and shirts that Jeff had purchased for her. Shelley had purchased some things online for her, but they weren't supposed to arrive until sometime this afternoon. She really needed some underwear. Jeff finished dressing and pulled a leather case from his bag and drew out a laptop computer, which he set on the small desk in the corner of the room. Mickey watched him as he logged into a secure site. She realized she loved watching him. He was adept, it seemed, at everything he did. Again, she thought of how lucky she was that he'd been at his vacation home. He was dressed nicely this morning, shirt and tie, and she guessed that meant that he was going to work. He said he had things to take care of today. What did that mean exactly? Frowning, she moved forward and placed her hands on his shoulders as he worked. Jeff? He smiled up at her, his brows raised. Yes? Are you, she took a deep breath, are you going away again? His lips pressed tightly together. I'm not sure. It's up to Jason. She stroked her hand over his face that had several cuts and bruises. You never did tell me what happened to you. Sighing, he held a finger up, hit a few more keys on the computer to save his work, and then turned back to her, gesturing toward the bed. Sit down. She did as directed. I had a meeting with your stepfather's flunkies, the guy driving the van and 4 others. Nausea overwhelmed her, and she clutched at her stomach. Hey, he said softly, it's okay. You're safe, and I'm here, and I'm fine. Everything went as planned. I got lots of important information at the cost of a few bruises. What did they say? She asked, her voice quivering. There is an arms deal, an $80 million arms deal. That's big stuff. More than likely, the FBI or CIA are not going to want to wait on this one. I'm guessing they're going to raid the senator's study and office, confiscate everything, and find out all the details. And then they're going to put him away for like 200 years. Really? Well, I may be exaggerating a bit. She leaned against him. So, my sister and my mother will soon be on their own? Will that be hard for them? For my mom, yes. I guess I sort of feel sorry for her. For my sister, I don't know. She thinks Talman is this wonderful father. I hate to burst her bubble. He's an evil man, Mick. Who's to say what he may do to her eventually if she were to get in his way? Of course, you're right. Moving forward, he placed his finger under her chin and tilted her face up. It will all work out, Mick. Trust me. Now, how about letting me finish this report and we'll go down to breakfast? She smiled sweetly. It'll cost you. How much? What about when I'm free to be seen in public, you take me out somewhere for dinner and a movie? Cheap date, are you? Huh, we'll just see about that. New scene. Please, Agent Dodge, you have to tell me what's going on. I can help. Marissa, you're a very smart and mature little girl, but you are a little girl. There's no way I can involve you in our investigation. Now, if you want to help, the most you can do is tell me everything you know about your father. I understand you're the only one he'll let into his study. She shrugged. I don't know why. Maybe he trusts me. Have you seen anything in there that you would consider suspicious? No, but I wasn't looking for anything. I'll go back home and I'll go through everything in there, but please tell me what's happening. Is my sister alive? Agent Dodge stood, shaking his head. I don't want you going through things in your father's study. I can't tell you anything at this stage of the game. You're a minor. I can't involve you. You seem like a good kid, Marissa, with a good head on your shoulders. I wish I could say something to you, but I can't right now. I can only tell you what you already know. We found a cabin in the woods near Honey Lake in California with 2 dead men. Evidence shows your sister had been there at some time and that she left through the woods, headed south. She arrived at a vacant home owned by a Jefferson Davis. What happened to her after that, we're not sure." He blew out a breath. He hated lying to the kid, but no way could he blow the investigation by confiding in the young lady, and then she accidentally slips up and tells her father what they know. Marissa sat quietly. "Honey Lake?" she finally asked. "Yes, why?" "I thought I heard my father say something about Honey Lake a long time ago." "How long?" "Maybe last year sometime." "Well, we can't find any link between the owner of that land and your father." "Well, if my father doesn't own it, then who does?" Marissa asked. "An older woman by the name of Ruth Carter. It was given to her upon the death of her grandfather, Seth Wickerman." "There's something on the edge of my memory," Marissa said. "Like what?" "Something about that property. I have to think about it." She pulled out her cell phone and noted the time and sighed. "I have to go. If I don't show up for school, they'll contact my father." "Do you need a ride back to school?" "No, sir. I got a friend to bring me here. He's waiting for me." "Listen, Agent Dodge, there's something I need to say. My father was not very nice to Mickey. He hurt her. He beat her. Living with him was like torture for her. I pretended not to know and not to see, but she didn't want me to see, but still, I let her down. Ask Miss Dora. She can tell you. Anyway, please, if there's anything you can think of for me to do, you let me do it." "We'll let you know, Marissa. Thanks for coming down." He watched her leave and looked over at his partner. "Poor kid." "It won't be much longer," Agent Stevens said. "I can't wait to get this guy." New scene. Jeff and Mickey arrived downstairs at the same time Jason arrived at the front door, so Jeff let him in. Jeff quickly made the introduction, and Jason took Mickey's hand in his. "I know you've been through a lot. Things are going to get better from here on out." Mickey nodded. "Thank you for all you've done, Mr. Lee. Please, call me Jason." He held a newspaper up to Jeff. "Shall we get this video made? I have to go into the office to get it sent in so that it can't be traced." "What video?" "One that proves you're alive," Jeff said. "Your father's men think I'm working with them to keep you hostage until after the arms deal. They want proof that I really do have you. Hope your acting skills are up to par." Unable to find a blank wall, they went upstairs to hold a sheet up as a background. Jason made the video quickly, using the newspaper as proof of it being current. That little piece of business taken care of, they went back down to join the Keno family. Breakfast was a free-for-all. Everyone cooking or fixing cereal or putting cream cheese on a bagel or chopping fruit or adding protein to the blender mix. Once everyone had their preference for their morning meal, they sat around the large table and went over the day's plans. Mickey did her best to try to follow along. Mark would drop Jeffy at school. She's working on a project that will take most of the day, and then will be spending the night with a friend. Shelley would take little Joey with her on a shopping trip for some things for Mickey. Eric had several appointments. Joey was headed into Ameritech the same time as Jason. Jeff would stay here with Mickey until further notice. Mickey's happy sigh of relief was audible and caught everyone's attention, and she blushed a bright red. Jason told Eric what had transpired at Jeff's meeting the day before and assured him it would only be a few days to a week before the FBI made a move of some kind on the senator. Eric patted Jeff on the back and offered his compliments and congratulations. Jason then told about the 2 men who'd come to visit him. They'd been taken into custody and had spilled their guts. Unfortunately, they didn't know much. All documents on the arms deal were supposedly kept in Talman Daly's study. Jeffy stood and said she really needed to get going. She went around the table, kissing everyone goodbye. When she got to Mickey, she hugged her close. "Don't you worry. I have a feeling something really good is going to happen." Mickey smiled and hugged her back. Jeffy turned to leave, then stopped, her eyes moving from person to person. Eric frowned. "What is it, baby girl?" Jeffy smiled and shrugged. "It's you all, my family. You're all so awesome, you know? Sometimes I just feel so grateful for you. I guess I just wanted you to know how much I love every single one of you." "We love you too, sweetie," Mark said first. They all joined in. Mickey couldn't believe the scene as it unfolded. It was like something out of a sugary holiday movie. Were there really families like this? A group of people who lived peacefully together with love and respect for each other? She snapped out of her reverie when Jeff reached under the table and squeezed Mickey's hand. Jeffy left with Mark. Breakfast ended, and everyone helped clean up. There was a flurry of activity as each member of the family went about pursuing their schedules, and while Mickey helped with the dishes, Jason pulled Jeff aside in a corner of the huge great room. He was frowning, which put Jeff on alert. "You and Miss Daly have something going?" "Something going?" Jeff asked nervously. "You know exactly what I mean," Jason said. Jeff looked down. Yes, sir." "What?" "What?" "Yes, what? What do you have going?" Jeff blew out a long breath. Well, we're not sure yet." "Are you sleeping with her?" Jeff looked down. "Yes, sir. I mean, I slept with her last night, but I didn't sleep with her." Jason shook his head and drew a breath, urging himself to be patient. "I guess I don't need to tell you she's in a vulnerable state, and I'm not sure your decision in this is the best for her. You are supposed to be protecting her, not seducing her." Jeff swallowed hard. "It's not exactly like that. If you're trying to justify sleeping with her because it's something she wants, then your reasoning is flawed. You rescued her. You're her hero, so to speak. She's going to feel the need to cling to you, and she may interpret that as a sexual attraction. After a trauma like she's been through, she's not exactly thinking clearly. I understand that, and we've considered all those things." "Considered them and discarded them?" "No, sir, not discarded." Jason's eyebrows rose. "I'm just saying that I'm not trying to seduce her or take advantage of her for the sake of an easy lay. And I'm a little surprised that you would think that of me. It's not like that." "Well, then how is it?" Jeff sighed because he knew it would sound ridiculous. I think, well, I think I'm in love with her." "In love with her," Jason repeated. He shook his head and did his best not to roll his eyes. "I know it sounds crazy, sir. It sounds crazy to me, too. It feels crazy." "Well, then that should tell you something." Jeff nodded. "I know." He blew out a breath and scrubbed his hands over his face. "It feels crazy, but it also feels right. I mean, look, I've never felt this way before about a woman. I don't know what to think. The chemistry, it's strong, you know. We both feel the same way, but we have talked about the extenuating circumstances and that this may blow over once we get back to normal living." "And you don't think that the right thing to do would be to wait until you and she are back to normal living?" Jeff nodded. "I do think that, in my head. Yet the feelings in my heart, they were like so strong." Sighing, Jason shook his head and then stood silently, peering into Jeff's eyes. Finally, he nodded. "Look, you know I'm not one to invade your privacy, except when what you do affects our company and its reputation. This matter of the heart, I have no choice but to trust you in this. But Jeff, be careful with her. She's a victim, and she's a witness." "Yes, sir." "And don't be insulted by this interview. I didn't really think you would take advantage of a vulnerable girl. As owner of this company, though, there are certain things that have to be said, regardless of my personal feelings about an agent." Jeff nodded. "I understand, sir." Jason smiled. "And, by the way, one of the things that need to be said is you did a great job assessing the situation and getting Mackenzie Daly safely out of there. You also did a great job yesterday getting information out of Daly's flunkies. Keep up the good work." "Thank you, sir," Jeff said with a grin. New scene. Talman Daly's hand balled slowly into a fist. It did something to him to see her standing there, alive and well, when he'd so carefully planned her death. He couldn't tell where she was. A white sheet hung on a wall behind her. The floor she stood on was hardwood. She could be anywhere. His eyes zeroed in on her face. She appeared a little banged up. He could see a few bruises. The hollow, haunted look in her eyes was pleasing. He could only hope that this Jeff Davis had some issues that he might take out on Mackenzie, though he doubted it. All the guy was interested in was getting his hands on some money. Her hand was wrapped in a bandage, and he wondered how she injured it. He listened carefully as he heard Davis order her to hold the newspaper. She told him to hold it himself. The camera pointed at the floor for a few seconds. He heard a soft grunt, then heard him threaten her with more bodily harm, and then it was back on Mackenzie, the paper in her hands. The camera zoomed in on the date and the headline. It looks legit, Kurt said, stating the obvious. Talman nodded in response. I hope he knows how to keep her under control until the deal goes down. She's a hellion. Talman looked up at his man. He couldn't do any worse than the rest of you. Kurt's lip curled in disdain for his boss. I told you to let me off her in the beginning. I knew keeping her around would make trouble. I had to make sure the timing was right, you fool. Do me a favor and try not to think. Kurt didn't say anything else, but he knew the real reason Daly waited so long to kill Mickey. In his own pathetic, distorted, deranged, sick way, he was in love with her. New scene. Jeffy glanced at her cell phone and rolled her eyes. Kimmy Lee had been her friend for as long as she could remember. Jeff had been, too, when Kimmy was born to Aunt Angel and Uncle Jason. Neither one of them actually related to Jeffy except through extreme close friendship to her parents. Jeffy thought Kimmy's mom, Angel, was one of the most beautiful women she'd ever known. She was a natural blonde with a beautiful face and killer body. She was the head of a national women's group for empowerment and self-defense that was apparently inspired by Jeffy's own mother. Korean-born Jason Lee was one of her father's best friends and was always saying he owed his success with the Meritech security to her father. And so Jeffy and Kimmy had practically grown up together as sisters. Jeffy loved her as a sister, but Jeffy's mind had come between them many times when Jeffy would lose patience. Kimmy was no slouch. She was a straight-A student, high school freshman class president, captain of the debate team, ambassador for Stop the Bullying Children's Organization, and could sing like an angel. But sometimes she demanded entrance into Jeffy's strange, half-adult, half-teenage world when Jeffy didn't have the time or the authority to allow her. This was one of those times. Jeffy punched the button on her phone. I can't talk right now, Kimmy. Why not? You're usually out of class by now. It's just not a good time. Jeffy, what are you up to? What makes you think I'm up to something? I can tell. First, you always want to talk, so you saying you can't talk sounds weird. Second, you were supposed to come by the house for lunch today. Jeffy grimaced. Oh, Kimmy, I'm sorry. I totally forgot. Yes, I can see that, which is what makes me know you're up to something. You never forget our weekly get-togethers. I may be younger than you, Jeffy, and not as brilliant as you, but I'm not adult either. Something's up, and I want to know what. Besides, I just heard thunder, and there's not a cloud in the sky here. Where are you? Okay, yes, something's up. I'm in Seattle. Seattle? What are you doing there? I don't have time to tell you about it now. Do your mom and dad know where you are? No. Jeffy, listen, Kimmy. I can't talk right this minute. I'm in a cab, and I need to pay attention to where I'm going. But I promise to call you a little later. Don't say anything to anyone, especially not your dad. I won't. Thanks, Kimmy, and talk to you soon. Jeffy pocketed her phone, drew a deep breath, and watched as the cab cruised slowly through the pouring rain like a boat on a lake. They drove down a street lined with beautiful trees, and Jeffy sat up straighter when the cab slowed and pulled into a drive. It was a large mansion off a fairly busy street right in the center of Seattle. Luckily, the gates were standing open and the cab just pulled right up. That would never happen at the Keno house. Jeffy paid the driver and got out of the cab, pulling her giant shoulder bag with her that had everything she would need for an overnight stay. Money, IDs, change of clothing, toothbrush, hairbrush, and other toiletries. She stood tall and eyed the house, gathering her courage. Drawing a deep breath, she dashed up to the door, trying to keep from getting too wet, and she pushed the doorbell. Nervously, she waited, pulling at her skirt and smoothing her hair that was gathered into a clip at the back of her neck. Her heart skipped a beat when the doorknob started to turn, having no idea what she would find on the other side. A pleasant-looking woman who seemed to be of either Latino or Native American descent answered the door. Jeff smiled at her brightly. Yes, may I help you? The woman asked. Hi, yes, I'm here to see Marissa, Jeffy answered. The woman frowned. Please step inside. Jeffy walked in and stood in the foyer. It was very elegant, very posh, very formal. One moment, please, the woman said. Jeffy watched her walk up the stairs. While she was gone, she peered around the foyer, gazing at pictures and peeking into a formal living room and pulling open a drawer in a secretary. What do you think you're doing? Jeffy turned suddenly at the stern male voice. She recognized Senator Daly from the research she'd done on the internet. She smiled sweetly at him. Oh, hi. Sorry. I've always been nosy. I'm just waiting for... She looked up as Marissa came running down the stairs, and Jeffy charged at her. Oh, Marissa, Jeffy cried, running to her and throwing her arms around her neck. Girl, it is so good to see you. She leaned close to her ear. Play along. Hey, Chris. Wow, where have you been? I haven't seen you since what time? Last October, remember, at that party. Oh, that's right. Gosh, it's so good to see you. Come on upstairs and I'll catch you up on all the gossip. Marissa looked down at her father. I'm sorry, Dad, if we disturbed you. Did you need me for something? His gaze narrowed at the newcomer, then moved back to his daughter. He sighed. No, dear. You and Chris go do whatever it is you little girls do. Dad, I'm not a little girl anymore. Yes, dear, if you say so. He turned and went inside a room, closing the door soundly behind him. Would you girls like a little something to eat? The woman who'd answered the door asked. Oh, yes, please, Jeffy said. I'm starved. I haven't eaten all day. Miss Dora, this is Chris. Jeffy held out her hand to the woman, who smiled and took it. It's a pleasure to meet you, Chris. I'll be right up with some goodies. Thank you, Miss Dora, Marissa said, then took Jeffy's arm and led her up the stairs. Once they were safely ensconced in Marissa's room, with the door closed soundly, Marissa folded her arms across her chest and stared at her unknown guest. Who are you? Jeffy smiled at her. You did a great job covering. I was really nervous that you would give me up, but you didn't. Mickey said you were smart. Marissa gasped. You've seen Mickey? Jeffy placed a finger on her lips and took the girl's hand and sat her down. Shh, not so loud. Yes, I've seen her. I had breakfast with her this morning. Marissa's eyes filled with tears. Listen, I'd rather not talk here in this house. Can you go out? Do you have a car? Jeffy frowned, shaking her head. No, I'm only 15. Marissa smiled excitedly. Well, I have a friend. I'll call him. He'll come pick us up. Sounds great. But can't you at least tell me something now? Jeffy grinned. She's alive and well, she whispered. Marissa reached out, embracing Jeffy. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Jeffy hugged her. You're welcome. Now, let's get some food and get out of here. New scene. While Shelley shopped and the rest of the family took care of their business, Jeff and Mickey romped on the beach. Mickey wore a borrowed suit from Shelley, and Jeff wore his own shorts. He did, however, borrow a surfboard and showed off for the girl. She was highly impressed. Jeff took her out and taught her some basics, and they played in the surf until Mickey gave out from exhaustion. They came in and laid on the beach, soaking up the sun while they caught up on their missed sleep. And when their energy returned, they walked, holding hands, stopping to kiss every few minutes. They talked and talked. Jeff told her more about his family. She told him everything, from her father leaving her and her mom to the dreadful wedding day, all the terrible beatings, the birth of her sister, and their close relationship. When she thought she was talking too much, she hesitated, and then he prodded her on, sensing her need to tell someone the things that she'd kept bottled up inside for so long. He reciprocated, telling her about what he considered to be his boring, non-eventful life, though it was a life filled with love, and a life for which he was extremely grateful. She teased him about Bree drugging him, and he'd gone on to tell the rest of the story, walking her around the bend to the rocks where Bree had climbed and almost lost her life. Jeff eased down inside one of the crevices and leaned back against a rock. He crooked a finger at Mickey. She came to him and sat on his lap, facing him. Well, this is nice and cozy, isn't it? She said. The perfect hideout, Jeff agreed. I bet little Joey and Eric will use these rocks one day at their fort to hide from girls or to be pirates. I wonder if Mark and Joey and Ricky ever did. Mickey laughed. I bet they did. It's a great place for kids. It's a great place even when you're all grown up, Jeff said. Mickey sighed in contentment. He smiled at the sound. What's that sigh all about? It's about everything. This time a week ago I was living in terror, cuffed to a bed, wondering which moment would be my last. Now I'm cuddled up on the beach, safe, secure, and, dare I say it, in love. And then think of how we found each other like it was fate or destiny. Everything is just so amazing. And my feelings for you, the feelings are just so strong. It's so hard to believe. I find myself wondering if it's even real. What if this isn't real? She whispered. What if I wake up tomorrow or next week and don't feel this way about you anymore? He frowned and shrugged his shoulders. Well, then we'll go our separate ways, better people for having known each other. That's not what you were supposed to say, she whined. You were supposed to say that won't happen because... She stopped, realizing she almost made another blunder. That won't happen because I love you too, and I'll never stop loving you, no matter what. Please don't make fun of me, Jeff. I wasn't making fun of you, sweetheart. I was saying what I really feel. Look, I don't know what to think. I've known you only a few days. I've never felt this way about anyone. It's not supposed to happen like this, so I'm thinking it's not real. It can't be. We're just feeling attached to each other because of the crazy situation. But then I look at you. I look into your big brown eyes, and I can't imagine being without you. That's how I feel too, Jeff. Intellectually, I know this is crazy, but in my heart, I don't want what we have to end. I'm in love with you, Jeff, and it feels so good just to say the words, I love you. I love you. He brought her mouth to his and kissed her deeply. And I love you, Mick. I don't understand how it can be. I don't even know you, yet I feel like I've known you forever. I love you, and you're right. It does feel good to say it. I love you, Mick. She smiled. Other than my sister, you're the only one who's ever called me that. What, Mick? Yes. She looked down. I miss her. I can't imagine what she must be going through. She's probably saying the same thing about you. Mickey smiled and ruffled his thick blonde hair. You're so very insightful. He grinned. How's this for insight? He kissed the top of her head. It's been 3 days since I met you, and I still love you, he assured her with a smile. It hasn't gone away yet. New scene. The two giggling girls swished themselves into the front seat of Cameron's shiny black Mustang. Knowing the ropes, he took off before Marissa's dad could stop them. Once they were on the street and a few blocks away, Jeffy looked over at the boy driving the car. Hi, I'm Jeffy, but you'll have to call me Chris. Cameron glanced over at her and did a double take, then smiled at her. Hi, you have 2 names, and they're both male names. She smiled. I guess it seems that way, but I assure you I'm all female. Oh, I can see that, he said smoothly, causing Marissa to snort. I'm here under false pretenses, Jeffy explained. Marissa's the one who came up with Chris. We told her dad my name is Chris, but my real name is Jeffy Keno. Jeffy. Interesting, Cameron said. So where to? Well, we have to talk. Go to the back of the football stadium, Marissa ordered. She turned to Jeffy. No one will be there in the summer at this time of day. We go there to hang out sometimes. He sped up now that he knew where to go, causing the girls to squeal in delight. It took only a few minutes to arrive at their destination, park, and pile out of the car. The 3 strolled underneath the bleachers until they found a spot dry enough to sit. Okay, Jeffy, tell me, Marissa coaxed. Jeffy glanced over at Cameron. Are you sure he's okay? Hey, don't talk about me like I can't hear you. Jeffy laughed. Sorry. He's like my best friend, Marissa said. You can trust him. Okay. Well, like I said, Mickey is alive and well. The guy who found her is up at the lake is a good friend of our family. I guess you already know he's an agent with Ameritech. Yeah, but they made it sound like he was involved with her kidnapping. Yeah, but he wasn't. He's just acting like that to get more information from your dad. He rescued Mickey and brought her to our house to stay for now. Mick's at your house? Where's your house? Just south of L.A. Good grief, how'd you get here? I flew, then took a cab to your house. Do your parents know where you are? Jeffy grinned. What do you think? Oh my gosh, Marissa exclaimed. You are so cool. Jeffy shrugged. I know what it's like to have someone you love missing and not know what happened to them. When my brother Ricky was kidnapped, I thought I would die. Your brother was kidnapped? Cameron asked. Yes, he got. Hold it. Ricky? Ricky Keno? You're freaking kidding me. You're Ricky Keno's little sister? Yeah. That means you're Brianna Adams' sister too? Marissa added. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Whatever. Back to the subject. No one is allowed to know where Mickey is, but when I spoke with her yesterday, she was so worried about you, Marissa. She was crying and stuff, and I just hate that. So I told her maybe I could figure something out, and I did. I decided to come and tell you myself. They might trace a phone call or anything else, but no one would suspect some little kid. So here I am. But aren't your parents going to be furious when they find you gone? Yes, they are. I'm going to call them in a little while and check in. They think I'm spending the night with a friend, which is sort of the truth, so they won't expect me home until tomorrow. You are amazing, Cameron said reverently. Jeffy smiled at the cute boy. Thanks. But where are you going to stay tonight? Marissa asked. My father won't let anyone spend the night. Jeffy shrugged. Well then, I guess I'll stay at a motel. Well, don't you have to be 18 to get a room at a motel? Well, there are ways around that. Like what? She grinned as she rifled through the giant shoulder bag, finally pulling out her wallet. She thumbed through it, pulled out several cards, held them up one at a time. This is my fake ID. This is a student ID at USC. This is my gym pass at USC. She opened up the side and pulled out several $100s. And this is for anyone who needs a little convincing. Cameron chuckled. You definitely came prepared. Jeffy shrugged. Well, I've never done anything like this before, and I wasn't sure what I would need, and money's always helpful. I admit, I thought I'd be able to stay the night with Marissa, like an old friend, but hey, we go with the flow, so it's a motel. No problem. I'm sorry my dad is such a butt. I've never been able to have anyone spend the night, though I don't know about you, all alone in a motel. I don't like this, Marissa said. I'll be okay. I can take care of myself. You do all the martial arts stuff too, don't you? Cameron asked. Yes. I think I'm in love. Jeffy giggled. I don't want you to stay in a motel all by yourself, Marissa said again. Cameron, you stay with her. What? I can't do that. She's like a girl and all. Besides, she won't want some guy in her room. You won't mind, will you, Jeffy? It'll make me feel so much better if Cameron stays with you. I'm already so nervous about Mickey. Don't make me have to worry about you too, please. Jeffy looked at Cameron and then shrugged nonchalantly. Sure, he can stay with me if that's his preference. I would appreciate the company. However, won't your parents want to know where you are? My parents don't care where I am as long as I'm not bothering them. Jeffy shook her head. Well, they don't know what they're missing. Cameron's eyes met hers, and she smiled brightly. Okay, then that's settled. You're staying with me. Now, listen, Marissa, I haven't told you